The regeneration campaign that Virgin Mobile is working on has set a goal to help 450 Canadian homeless youth or at-risk youth to find jobs in Canada. How does the campaign plan to go about doing that?
Well, Mobile have done a fantastic job over the last few years in getting roof over the heads of people who are on the streets, finding food for them. Now they've identified jobs that are needed to be filled, and they're going to try to train 450 people who are on the streets and actually fill those jobs, so give them a long-term way of getting off the streets.
You're also in Canada to promote your book, The Virgin Way, which comes out today. In the book, you mention that leaders often get too caught up in the creative process and forget to take a step back and look at a product from the consumer perspective. Can you give me an example of when that's happened to you? You mentioned an example in the book, Virgin Condoms. Any other situations where that possibly may have failed?
Well, I was once bumped off a flight going from Puerto Rico to the Virgin Islands. I wanted to get there because I had a beautiful lady waiting for me that night. So I went to the back of the airport. I was in my 20s. I hired a plane. I got a blackboard. I wrote Virgin Airways, $39 one way to the BVI, and I filled up my first plane. And it got me thinking, you know, airlines do bump people. And so when I got to the Virgin Islands, I rang up Boeing and asked if they had any second-hand 747s for sale. And that's how Virgin Atlantic started. And that was 30 years ago. So I think a lot of great businesses come from personal frustrations like that. And that perhaps was my most extreme one.
Speaking of Virgin Airlines, right now we've been talking about it in the media a lot, fights on airplanes due to legroom or decreasing amount of legroom and people using knee defenders so that a seat cannot recline. What's Virgin's take on this situation?
Well, I do think it's very important that people have decent legroom, and I think at Virgin, you know, we have slightly more legroom than most of our competitors, and therefore I don't think we have that problem. I'm sure we do on occasions, but I don't think generally we have that problem. But I think if a seat is made to recline, I really do think it's a bit unsociable not to let the poor person in front have a little bit of a recline on their seat.
Within the Virgin Group, you've got Virgin Airlines or Virgin Atlantic and several other subsidiaries, several hundred, stemming from Virgin Health Bank to Virgin Radio, and you often give the reins over to somebody else to manage that company. How do you overcome brand dilution?
Well, we've been asked that question since I was 15, nearly 50 years ago, and started in business. We are a very different kind of brand than almost any other brand in the world. We are a way of life brand. We've gone into 200 different businesses. We've shaken those industries up, but by, I think, doing it well, the Virgin brand has become one of the most respected brands in the world. If we went into a new business and we didn't do it well and we ripped off the consumer, then that would obviously damage the other 199 companies, and it would be a big mistake. So, I mean, people don't mind us trying things and failing, but they would certainly mind if we didn't treat the consumer properly, and so we make sure we do.
Is there any business you wouldn't enter?
Yes, I mean, we wouldn't enter into businesses that hurt people. So, cigarettes would, although Virgin might have a very popular cigarette company, we certainly would never go into cigarettes. So I think, we only will go into businesses if we feel we can, offer something a lot better than's been done by other people, and shake up an industry and make it very different than what it was before in a positive way.
Late August, you mentioned you and 15 other business leaders proposed to or requested a meeting with President Putin in regards to expressing your views on the political situation in Ukraine. Where does that request stand? I'm going to Ukraine next week with a group of business leaders to see President Poroshenko, who's the president of Ukraine, and then we will continue to Russia to see politicians there. And what we're basically saying is, do not resolve differences by bringing in tanks or shooting airplanes down. Resolve differences by, through the ballot box. And if East Ukraine genuinely wants to be independent, maybe in 4 or 5 years' time, give them the right to become independent, or give them the right to, hold a referendum. But do it in the ballot box, not through force. Last question. You're known as an eternal optimist. Given the situation in the world right now, what threatens that optimism?
I mean, conflict obviously threatens anything in a country. I mean, it threatens education, health, everything. And there are still situations in the world where horrible conflicts are going on. And I think it's up to all of us to do everything we can to resolve those conflicts, or all those people who are in a position to try to do it. So we set up an organization called the Elders, which Nelson Mandela set up when he was still alive. And the Elders are busily out there trying to resolve the conflicts. Kofi Annan is the chairman of the Elders, and there's another 11 wonderful men and women who are working very hard to get these conflicts resolved.